Well, thanks for having me here, everyone. I thought maybe I'd just run through everyone has a copy of this library levy presentation. I thought I'd just run through that real quick as a starter and then jump into questions and discussion if that works for everyone. We've been having some discussions around the library levy and the timing of it. Typically, we would go in the May election. So we went in May 2012, 2017, 2022. And we've been having discussions around the timing as well as the makeup of the levy. The current levy is set to expire June 2027, so that comes up in this next year. And the current levy rate's 65 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And I believe it has been that for the last 3 elections, if not since the levy's inscription. Yeah, so yeah. And then you know, in terms of what's funded by the levy, we're in a unique library system within Oregon, and the way that we are set up. We have library services provided by the county. We have the main library building in Tillamook, and then we have partnerships with 2 cities in Garibaldi and Bay City to provide library services out of the civic buildings there. And then we have 3 libraries that are funded by nonprofit entities that are basically library support groups, library friends groups in Pacific City, Manzanita, and Rockaway Beach. And so it allows us to have the support of keeping those facilities running through private monies while providing library services of those buildings. I would argue it also provides a unique ability for us to have community engagement in each of those communities. And so I appreciate that as well. So along with those library locations, there's also a bookmobile that is funded that goes around and provides services in community areas, going into schools and providing story times as well as a book checkout, and then also going out to events such as the fair this week, where it will be parked for Tuesday through Saturday. And then we have outreach services that also come through our courier van. The courier van 3 days a week provides delivery of materials between all of the libraries in Tillamook County, as well as a connection to the Lincoln County library system that we're in a consortium with. And then the other 2 days a week, we make that available for delivering homebound materials. So people who can't physically make it into the library, we'll bring books to them. That's a new service of the last 5 years in the form it's in now. The bookmobile used to do some of that before. And then of course, library materials is a big part of what we provide. So we provide materials out of all of those locations. We have newspapers, music, digital materials that are available 24/7 for all of the people with library cards in our community, which are free to everyone, and that people can have in perpetuity as long as they're using their library card. What's funded by the library levy also is technology and equipment. So we have computers across the entire county system. We have wireless internet throughout the county and tools for checkout as well. We have programming that happens in every single one of our library. In this past 5 years, we've made sure that there is story time available in every single library in the system. That was a really critical gap when I started, where we really had to concentrated services like that out of Maine, but wanted to make sure that that was accessible throughout the county. Community spaces. So we have community rooms and small meeting rooms, small study rooms that are there to provide space for the community. So those can be reserved by the community as well as we do programming out of those spaces. We also provide services by appointment, so you can get help with either technology typically or notary services. And then we're looking to expand that help over time based on the other services that we are able to provide. And then every year, summer reading, feeling it right now, getting towards the end of the summer reading time. And so that is meant to help make sure that there's a fun way to keep kids engaged with reading throughout the summer. And you know, I think so far this year has been really, really great, really rewarding. Looking forward to seeing where our numbers ended up today or tomorrow. So that's sort of a picture of the library services. In terms of the future, you know, we are preparing to meet the needs of the community. Libraries are always operating in rapidly changing circumstances. I think we always like to think, oh, right now we're going through some really big changes, but really when you look back, libraries are always going through times of big changes for communities, regardless of when they're operating. But it's critical that we're staying on top of that, making sure that we are addressing the needs of the community as it is today, and not just kind of people's image of a library from, you know, kind of yesteryear, as it were. So, you know, in terms of the value that we're going to be providing over the next while, we'll have a new bookmobile that will come online in the next while. I believe probably spring to fall of next year, based on the timeline. And that will be that'll be a big improvement in terms of our ability to be really reliable with that service. The bookmobile we currently have is wonderful, but it is definitely aging. And so it is not as reliable. And last year, we had a significant number of days where it was off-road because we had access to the bookmobile. Public-private partnership to develop a library in Beaver, Oregon is been in process. That looks really good. It's been a great partnership so far. And will also involve the foundation supporting some of the furniture and fixtures in that space. This is a really fantastic deal for the community. At the end of the day, we're going to be able to support having a new library where we're able to deliver library services while paying essentially lease terms on a space that will be built to really provide excellent library services, including community rooms, including technology and library materials, as well as a public meeting room. So that's going to be great. We have a teen area remodel that's going to be in the Tillamook main building that'll enhance spaces for teens, and including creative space that is funded through the Library Foundation. So that is not any part of Levy money. We're working with the Rockaway Beach Library Friends to develop a vision for what that space needs to be in that community over time. Again, that's not something that would be funded through Levy money, but is part of just developing like a vision of what that space looks like over time. The Friends have been interested in a couple of different options over time, but we've never really sat down and said, what would we want out of this space? So we're getting ready to do that. So we have a vision so we can put it out there in the world and really have an understanding of what will benefit them as well as library users. And then additional creative space for community members. Just we're always looking for ways to provide more space for people to do things, to create and learn within the library. Which brings us to recommendations for the next levy. So looking at the current setup, my first recommendation is that the board refer future library levy measures to the fall ballot in the year prior to the fiscal year of funding. I think that this is a matter, this puts the matter in front of the most voters to make this critical decision with the library's future, but also supports the budget planning process. So you know, the going in May, we've already established the budget for the year at that point that is up for vote. This means that we are able to really fully identify those resources are hopefully going into next year and be more accurate in terms of that process, as well as thinking about, you know, if there's ever a point at which we are saying or looking for something in the community says, yeah, that's not really the right fit for this time. It also means we're able to recalibrate in a May election and be able to adapt to what we're hearing from voters. So. And the second recommendation is looking at the numbers. I recommend a levy rate that is 63 cents per $1,000 assessed value for the voters. I think the library can sustain services at this rate and save taxpayers about 3% annually in property taxes. On the next page, you'll see a breakdown of numbers looking at the levy. I took an initial run at this and then Deborah very helpfully went through and made some revisions based on numbers she had available. And so you can see the top chart is just if you a levy rate at the current rate, 0.65 cents, 65 cents per $1,000 of assessed value were in place. How we would expect that to roll out. That includes personnel, materials, and services, as well as capital expenditures based on the 5-year capital plan for the library. And then you can see on the second one is that lowered levy rate and what happens. And you can see as you get out further, there's a lower ending balance, right? And so I think the risk at that lower level is that if anything really, really major happened, I mean really major, we could potentially be scrambling at that point for the funding that carries over in those 3 months before tax receipts come in. But I don't think that we should be budgeting for extreme emergencies. I think we should be budgeting for what we need. And based on what I see here, it does not seem as if we need 65 cents per $1,000. And I think also at a time of rising costs for our voters, that is will hopefully be a one area in which there can be a relief. There are many, many needs in our community. So, with that, glad to answer questions and discuss how we move forward.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you, Don, for being willing to look at this and sharpen your pencil and see whether or not a rate decrease was possible. That was a question that I had asked. Just in light of the environment that we're sitting in, it seems perhaps a little tone deaf as the rest of the county is looking at how they can cut things, and everyone in their personal home is looking at how they can cut things a little. And I understand voters have passed this in the past. I understand that you know, they are used to it, but it just feels like in light of all the conversations, this is a really good approach for us to consider as we're going out to the voters. So I appreciate that. I know that it's difficult to do. The library is fantastic. So I want to realize that that is done against the backdrop of a strong support for the library, right? I'm not out to get the library in any way, shape, or form. I use it regularly. My family uses it. We love it. It is a crucial center point of our community. So I don't want the request that, you know, in that part of the conversation to somehow negate the value of the library in anybody's mind, because it's very, very valuable. And we're in a really challenging window of time for everybody all across our communities. And I think there's an opportunity here with the messaging. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we want the library to be a trusted institution in our community, right? And I think part of that is being mindful of what are the resources really needed to run operations and make sure that we're doing that work of making sure that the amount is the right amount.
Thank you.
I agree with you. I'm I also support the library. I'm very, very concerned about this election. And I think I spoke to you about that, but I echo what you said. I think it's the best chance this thing has to continue to support we've been used to is reducing it, I think, as well. I think that's a fantastic approach. I'm looking at the downward trending and it worries me a little bit, but I think that I think the approach that you've taken is going to give it the best chance it has.
And when the downward trending, just in the vote.
If you look at the last page where it's trending downward, which
Oh, okay.
with precincts, it's trending
Yeah.
downward and
Yeah,
then it's support.
Downward or flat.
So I appreciate very much the voter data. To me, that was an important part of sort of also thinking through the difference between November and May. And Krista, I would love to hear your thoughts as we kind of walk forward on this. Certainly just what I'm seeing in the world, the November election is going to be probably a pretty high voter turnout. I think people feel like there really is a chance to flip that governor seat to Republican, which I think means you will see Republicans coming out at a much, much higher rate, or at least a higher rate. And potentially independents and unaffiliateds as well, who have chosen not to play with either party because they feel the extremes are running the parties. And there's this, third of our voters or more that are in that center that normally may be like, oh, but now those that are right leaning coming out to say, okay, let's try to shift this, right? So I do feel like this election could look a little different than past elections have. And that is concerning, and it's concerning. I don't know for sure where those populations sit in our community. I have some pretty big guesses, and I see them in the areas that have been our no's before, as being the areas from which we may receive more no votes potentially. And I know we've been up at 61% plus, which has been a really ridiculously a comfortable thing in a levy, but it is concerning as to how that might shift by being in this November. Christy, can I ask you if you have thoughts on that, since you are our elections lady and know better than anyone?
I think we definitely are gonna have higher turnout than we've had in the past, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think we could potentially get to 80% turnout. I mean, I think realistically, which we haven't in quite a while. But I think this election, it's heated. People are on fire to make changes. So I think that we really do have the potential to see.
Christy, in the past, has this levy been in the general or in the primary election?
Neither. It's on the May, usually falls on the May of.
This usually falls on the May.
Usually falls on May of odd numbered year elections.
Okay. So that's another
Which is our
important,
special district election, which the voter turnout for that is pretty low.
Yeah.
40%.
right?
40.
So that's another consideration.
But then the other consideration is one that I think you guys talked about a little bit, which is a change in the team who's going to run the campaign for the library, that Ruth is not going to be available. She's got other things going on and potentially some of her strong partners that have helped. So now we're also looking at a challenge just because we have a new team potentially in terms of leadership running this. And I don't have any way to gauge how strong that team is and how we feel. If there's just a roadmap, it's okay. Are we working with a consultant who's guiding us at all? What are the full resources? Because I forgot to ask you that when we were talking.
Yes. So it would be running with a new person at the head of the campaign. Ruth doesn't have the time or ability during this campaign cycle to take this on. And honestly, even if it was me, she would not be taking this on. She would be in an advisory role. She likes to point to me and say, you need some younger people, Don.
Everywhere in the county, we
Yeah.
need some younger people in positions like this.
But she has a strong roadmap for us to follow. The efforts that have gone in historically, well, and I can speak most about the 2022 election. they're modest efforts, I would say. They do not seem substantial to me in terms of the efforts that in terms of what I've seen. So they do door hangers right throughout the county.
Okay.
So that's probably the biggest lift that I see in there. There's, certainly letter writing campaigns and then general like meet and greets with organizations. Alongside that, it's looking at the voter rolls, trying to decide who your voters are and getting that together. So I definitely hear that concern. I definitely share that concern. And I don't know that the lift seems huge to me in terms of what we've done historically. But I would also, I'm less familiar with 2017, 2012 efforts too. So.
I agree. I think we have talked to a number of people about their interest in participating in this PAC and this campaign. And I have a few strong yeses and a few other people that I said, we'll get back to you when we decide we're actually doing it in November.
Yeah.
But I think there's, I think there are advantages to recruiting a new team.
Oh, sure.
And it could go very well. I had not, until you just asked, I had not considered whether the library should have a consultant. So why don't you talk to all of us about your idea for that?
So for me, I'm looking at one of the things that I think will be central to this campaign and the governor's race will be no new taxes. I mean, I think we are definitely going to have a real push on that. There's also the national movement right now to get rid of property taxes, which is happening in states all across the nation. I don't know where Oregon is in line for that. I do not know if that's going to come into this election, but it certainly could. And obviously this is a property tax. So I think I'm concerned messaging wise, I'm concerned effort wise, that we have leadership at the helm of this campaign that is ready to take on the environment in which we may be, which is maybe very different than the environments we've been in. Door hangers across the county and some letters to the newspaper about the value of the library in the face of a gubernatorial race, which is going to have the transportation package at the center of it, where your Democratic governor wanted to cost you a whole lot of money and your Republicans saved you. Taxes are going to be right there and everybody's going to be showing up to vote for protecting themselves from more taxes, I fear. So I think someone professional who's living in that environment would be very helpful for us to figure out messaging and approach inside that. So I think that's my thinking.
Okay, it's a good idea.
To add to that too, is just the importance of reaching the unaffiliated and the independents, because it's not just a third anymore. In Tillamook County, I just pulled the number off your page. It's Democrats are 5,991, unaffiliated to 9,665, and Republicans are 6,000. So
yeah,
that really needs to be considered too, because you're going to have to reach those folks.
Yeah,
in the middle.
absolutely. This guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So I think that would be helpful too in that scenario.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it necessarily, but we need to do it, I think, with our eyes open and recognizing that this is not campaign as usual.
Yeah.
So to your point, it can be better to develop a new team because I don't think this is campaign as usual.
Yeah.
But we need to make sure we have the resources to go into this and find the right message in a world of no taxes that, we're part of the solution, we're reducing, and how do we get people who are really feeling pinched to go ahead and vote for taxes.
And we had in the May election, we had a very close tax ballot with the fire department. That was very close.
Fire department was close. We lost at TLT,
Mhm.
and that wasn't even something local voters were going to pay. So knowing that.
And if you're looking at like a solid plan and getting someone on board, the filing deadline is next Friday.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that, are you gonna rush and push to do it, or take some time for May and really look at that? Because I think you could potentially get into a really pushed situation and rushed versus Just, that's my 2 cents too.
And
Good
if,
point.
yeah, and if we did May, we would have the benefit of knowing how this November election landed, what the messaging was, what voters responded to. I'm not sold either way. I think it's,
I
yeah,
think there are risks either way, yeah.
yeah,
I think I am in the same boat as you.
yeah. I mean, because I can see it either way, but, and I can see if we lose it in November, you go back in May with your updated messaging and your updated whatever you need to campaign to take it on. But that could mean that this pack and these people and all of us are in this all the way through
Mhm.
May.
Yeah. I think, I mean, to my mind, once, once referred, whether May or now, the goal is gonna be to win and to win as big as possible,
Mhm.
right? And so the messaging's gotta be right, it's gotta be focused in on nominee voters, and it needs to be, robust in terms of that. I think there are a lot of people who will be willing to step up to support a library effort that aren't typical actors in partisan races, that I think we will be able to rely on to make some of that push. But I say that now, and we certainly are, until we're at the point where that group is at go time, we won't know for sure.
Anybody else here have any comments?
I think as far as the financials, I ran a few numbers and Don's projections look great. They're conservative. We could budget off of beginning balance at worst case scenario. And I think Don has a great plan lined up with that 63 cents. And I have some packets that I can hand around just for backup information.
That'd be
if you all
great.
wanted to. Just a 6-year history on the library. I only printed 6. So good. Okay. Stations over beginning fund balance, over revenue and expenditures. There's a chart on that. And the number of months in reserve. And then if we go to page 2, you can see that budget to actual spend rate has been pretty consistent over the last 6 years. With a pretty high turnover rate in that period. So that's where we see a little bit of a difference. We have leveled off in turnover rate, so your personnel expenditures are likely going to go up at a higher rate than other funds.
In that FY 26 number, I'm assuming that just doesn't include that last bit of that comes in at the end of the fiscal year.
Right, these are not audited numbers yet.
67, do you expect that spend rate to go up based on year end?
Yeah, I think there were some big expenditures at the end too, with mobile, et cetera. So, yeah.
There's just some quick numbers, get us all a little bit comfortable with what might go either way.
I would echo the concerns that have been shared. It just feels like it's rushed, and I'm supportive of whatever the board and you're in this the most and defer to your decision making on this, but it does feel rushed, and and what I'm hearing in the community, I think I've been here for 11 years, and I think this will be the most heavily critiqued library election. And that's concerning. And another perspective on, we have a chance to go in May for different messaging, which is true. You also, if it doesn't get approved, you're coming off of a loss.
Yeah.
Which has its own challenges in recouping from. So just another consideration there. Yeah, I think this is going to be a huge lift either way. And we should not assume that what we've done in the past will work this time, because I think this is a whole different ballgame, just to kind of echo. Aside from the state and other local politics, just the library in a silo is a totally different. And in hearing you talk about maybe what some of the other folks at the library are thinking about and approaches, I'm just kind of wondering if they're not maybe hearing this from other members of the community, or what. Maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect, but maybe it's just not coming through.
I mean, I think that there's been a really consistent group of people working on these campaigns, and they just kind of like, here's what you've done and here's what we've done. It's, which is different from my approach. But that is, I think, that I would say is kind of what I've heard, and I've tried to message through and through, like, there's going to be opposition. It will be focused. It's not, we're not in a time where libraries it's just a different environment for libraries, right, nationally as well as here. And so, yeah, that's just an ongoing discussion. But I mean, also, I think there will be a different team as well. So, team to add some of those assumptions, but I would not disagree that, like, the timetable is fast.
It's 81 days from next Friday.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then 60 days from that until ballots are mailed. So, yeah.
So when I think of, how to sell this and what the opposition is going to be, the opposition is going to be looking at, and I thought this with every election, is what are we paying for? And do we have to have these services? What's essential? What do we have to have? And what's nice to have?
Mhm.
And the library is amazing and it provides so many great things. But what are people going to hone in on that we don't need?
Yeah.
That maybe could be funded elsewhere, which, the 3% drop is great. Is there any wiggle room just to show that there are other ways to fund services, so you can just further emphasize that maybe this is on a longer plan? Because we are coming into the election, from what you showed with the programs, while they're great, one could perceive that as an expansion. So is this a time to expand the library? Some could look at. Maybe not. So I'm just kind of thinking of messaging and services and looking at what another perspective might be on where people are going to poke holes in, which is going to make it fail.
Yeah.
So
I
that's my
appreciate
thought.
that. And I agree with that. And then again, just the thinking, we're not making decisions here, but that's part of my concern is the timeframe and getting enough of the message out there
Mhm.
that's solid. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I think if the goal is to have this pass, rather than the goal is to have this pass sooner, is really what I'm thinking about is, because I agree, I didn't even think coming off of a loss could be worse. And we've done it, like the jail, it historically took 3 or 4 times to get that. But this is an unprecedented election in November for the state, for sure.
So I'm wondering if you can share some of what you just said about what you're hearing in the community, the anti-library sentiment. Because, we know about book challenges, but maybe you're hearing other things that we're not hearing.
I would say, aside from all of the book challenges and maybe personal attack stuff, throw all that out the window. A lot of people think the library gets too much money. A lot of people. And a lot of the programs that the library has are not essential services to reading. They're great, but it's a community, it's a great community place, which is an important thing to have. And there's a question of whether taxpayers should be paying for that or not when you look at all of the taxation for different bonds and levies countywide. The library is a big chunk of that. And so when you have a 65 cents or 63 cents on the ballot or something that they're already paying for, maybe they won't pay for something else, even though they would prefer to pay for that because of the library. And again, we're just talking about the library, but so people are looking at it with that perspective, and all of the politics aside, just looking at the services that the library provides, some are questioning whether we need all of that or not. So that's why I'm kind of, and they're great programs.
Yeah.
I use them too.
Yeah.
But should taxpayers be paying for them, or should the Library Foundation, which is so successful, help support non-reading programs or
Yeah,
so that's what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
From not just
That's helpful.
one segment of the community.
yeah, it's theoretically successful.
The foundation.
We still have to actually do
It's a
some.
robust group.
Yeah.
But a group that could be leveraged to do, but I saw how successful they were with the library park and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So if there were library bookmobile fundraising, Beaver library fundraising, those capital
Yeah.
things, maybe, I don't know. So just looking at this with a different perspective on how to
Yeah.
fund things at the library.
Yeah, and I think I think a big talking point is the leveraging out of what you get in addition, right? Because there is that funding that comes in privately to be able to do things that a lot of that isn't levy. And so that is one piece is like, these are the things that are actually funded. Because I think also, I spend a good amount of time talking about the library and the value of it and what we do. And it probably sounds like we are funding lots and lots of things. The reality of what we fund is, right? Some staffing, some materials, some electronic resources.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is the perception of programming that it's new or that it's more?
I think general people just think it's a lot and I could go into lots of weeds of, maybe they're accurate assumptions or inaccurate assumptions, but people certainly see things that make them question how the money's being spent.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I also think, like, one of the things to that point too is like how technology, we recognize in every other department, how technology has changed the user, like the user experience of the customer's experience. And so I just wonder if that's still, if that's part of it. I think a lot of it's also bottom line, just I'm struggling. And I think that, I think the registered voter shift, I mean, I didn't realize, I used to think it was a third too, and I didn't realize it was that much independence. So, and that the typical library, all out supporters are the minority in the county. So we really have to be cognizant that you're gonna have to reach over into the center to be able to do this, and just make sure, do we have time to have that messaging be effective, I guess, because the ones that are always supporting libraries are always going to support libraries, but those numbers are shifting.
Yeah.
In some respect.
Yeah. I mean, despite the politicized environment, I do not see the library as a strictly partisan entity. The people we had supporting in the last election were some people I agreed with on things, and some people I very much disagreed with on lots of things. And so I do think there is a slightly different voter set for libraries than there is for other things that we might see. But you're right, the timing is quick. The messaging is going to have to be quick. It's going to have to be effective. I think the messaging really has to be that you're getting the library you love at a reduced cost moving forward, right? Like to me, that's the message. whether it's effective, whether that can happen in the time that it needs to happen in, that's the question.
And sitting and listening, I'm thinking no. And I hate to say that. I hate to be the one to put that on the table. But sitting and listening, I'm feeling like we are better off to take a breath, let this election sweep through, learn from it, and go out in May, get a consultant on board, do our polling, and go out in May with the right message, with the right resources, ready to confidently plant our feet on a message, confidently ask for an amount, and do it in May. It just, in my gut, is where I'm at.
Well, I don't disagree.
There we go. I
don't
planted my
100%
flag and it
disagree.
has nothing to do with
I want you- I want you-
anybody
I
at
want
the
you on
table.
the
Well, I
Yeah,
think that that's important here too, is I think this is one of those things like the airport and PC, it's like, we all support it.
Yeah.
But is this, we also, what's the best path forward for success? And I think that, like, the 3%, the reduction is fantastic. But to your point, if we till May, could that be even a little higher if we decide that we could reach it, which would make it more palatable on another ballot? I don't know. So I tend to, without making a decision today, I tend to feel the same way. I'm just really, and it's out of concern for success. That's the concern, not
Yeah.
an anti in any way, shape or form. It's like strategically, when's the best time? And that's where a consultant really helps, and we don't have the time to do that now for this one. So that's what scares me a little bit. And then all the reasons that were stated. So I don't know.
I appreciate all this feedback very much. The idea of a consultant is really resonating because I don't know how to reach the growing group of NAVs. I haven't personally been involved in any campaigns that have identified that, like, here's how we reach the NAVs, the non-affiliated voters.
Never heard that.
group
I've heard of the term, but not
Yes,
the.
yes, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, it's growing. I mean,
Yeah.
quickly. And so I don't have an answer for that. And it's not gonna be, the way that they've done it in the last couple of elections, if we're successful in that part. So I think that's really good feedback. And
That's gonna be really important in the state election too, November. I don't think people recognize the shift. It's a completely different climate now.
tell me more about that.
Well, it's just because I think what happens is, I was trying to think about this. The folks that run on an ideology, whether it's right, left, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, they run on that. And those NAVs, like myself, we're looking at issue by issue, candidate by candidate, to see how it fits in with our life. And so, although there's still so much pushback, and I don't want to get all political about this, but this is a frustrating thing for NAVs. The majority, by the way, that are frustrated. We don't have a voice. We don't have a media. So we are getting, I think you're going to see that middle get stronger and voice opinions and come out in elections where historically it's been a little low, even though the numbers are higher, the turnout's been lower. I think in this November election, you're going to see a huge shift in the activity of NAVs, of non-affiliated. And I think it's important for anybody running any campaign, whether it's especially a nonpartisan one like this, which is, we're saying it's nonpartisan, we have to make, I think the importance of putting that front and center, that this is not one or the other, because we all use the library, no matter what your political ilk, but it's difficult sometimes to separate that. And I mean, I sit and have lunch recently with candidates on both sides. And my stress to them is, you need to talk to me. You need to talk to the center. They're the largest group. And we need to start hearing some other things than what's being said. And sometimes I find, and I have family members too, that if you're on one side or the other, it's hard to hear that we in the middle think two things can be true. You're a person that you hold up on a pedestal, is bad, your person is also bad. I can say that about both of them. And I feel like this is one of those things where the library is great. I worry that this election is really gonna be challenging. And I'm not sure if this is the best way for us to test out a new, quickly, a new program of campaign.
Yeah.
If we don't truly understand, like you said, it's like, it is growing so quick. Do we have a grasp of that? Would it be more successful for us to take a breath, do the research, learn from this election? I hate when I agree with you so much. But that's the truth. I mean, that's truly my concern is I understand all the reasons we're trying to get it on there, but I also I really am concerned. If the outcome is for it to win and to pass, I'm not 100% convinced this pushing it out so quick is the best idea.
So for the May 27 election, filing deadline March something?
For May, the last day is February 26th to
Oh,
file.
February.
Yeah.
February 26, so the board would make a decision on that in mid-February. So that is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Would you be able to develop a timeline with that date in mind of mid-February of what your process would be like? Find consultant,
Mhm.
polling period.
Yeah.
Develop that and then bring it back to the board in a briefing to give yep, this approach looks good. And I don't know if there's other things for analysis that's needed, it's planning, but if there's any thoughts there, throw them on and then we could talk about that at a briefing. So we all know how we're marching forward by mid-February. And it sounds like a good plan that seems successful.
I would argue that if we're looking at mid-February and February 26th, that in January there'd be a briefing. I think the sooner, one of the things I don't necessarily want to.
Let me clarify. I was thinking developing the process timeline to bring to the board for a thumbs up on the timeline.
Okay.
Sooner than later.
Yeah,
And then whenever it's implemented for the timeline, but.
yeah. Yeah, I guess, I think that would probably be fine. I don't want to signal a political effort before it's necessary to start lining up opposition to that. So I just would want to make sure that whatever was presented was mostly focused on that timeline at that point, as opposed to messaging, right? So, which
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking that there would be work happening
Yeah.
over the next couple of months.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I think if we can identify a consultant and be moving toward that post-November time, that
Mhm.
November, December, is
Yeah.
going to be that huge analysis time of what did this election teach us? What did we learn about the NAVs? What did we learn about reaching them? Who was successful? How did they do it? That kind of stuff that we hope they'll be able to help us with. That November, December, January is like the analysis window that will help us. And I don't know if polling, I would love to have some of that polling that also speaks to, are we hearing consistently in a poll what people think are extras, what people feel solid about, so that as we're looking at that 63 cents, is that the right 63 cents? And do we have the right sales pitch for what's the core service that people are connected? I just feel like there's so much there.
Yeah.
And I get what
then
you're saying.
raising significantly more money.
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
that would
right.
be the other piece of
Yeah,
that.
and the good news about May is it is a special districts election. It's a smaller election and it is in general a nonpartisan election, right? Whereas this is a highly partisan election. It pulls it back into that nonpartisan space because your water district boards and everybody else are nonpartisan too.
Do we know anything about financial measures that will be on in November or in May?
Nothing for May so far, because that window isn't open. In November, no, 5 cities going out in November for some things that are not money measures.
The North Coast Fire District, are they still,
Anyway,
Garibaldi, the Garibaldi Rural, Garibaldi District?
Donna.
Fire district,
Yeah.
coming
That
up.
was-
Madonna. Garibaldi.
Last I heard, they
Madonna.
were made, but I know there's some changes in there, so that's the table.
Well, and I know Nadana, I think they had issues with their attorneys that didn't get them on the proper ballot
Hmm.
to get them out on time the last time, so they ended up lapsing. So they're kind of on a, I think their timeline is not what it had been in the past. But those potentially, one of them could be on in May. I want to say the others would be the next year.
Have TLT on the radar.
No,
We're not doing anything with that in May or anything else that I can.
Not that we've talked
no,
about.
but then the long session, what's gonna be happening in that, you know, this, things brewing.
Oh,
But I
veterans,
still think-
Yeah.
veterans would be in May.
Which is another small one and popular one, and yeah, 7 cents, and it's I think two feel-good measures together is a better matchup than some could be.
Mhm. Good county services.
Two good county services.
So what I'm hearing is prepare for May.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this conversation, Dawn, because I just was like sitting on the fence,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Well, and, you know, and I want, good feedback on it, and I wanna, you know, regardless of when it's gonna be, you know, as a private citizen, I'll be, going 100% for it, and so, you know, but I wanna make sure that, you know, you have all the information and can make the right decision, and slash, I don't put a decision in front of you that, is, not helpful. So,
And I would,
matter.
to Rachel's point, I would consider the timeline, but let's start the work now, like the
Yeah.
research, like these questions that we're asking, you know.
Yeah.
And paying attention to this election and really,
Yeah, we've begun to have meetings.
Yeah.
and So.
that'd be great.
I think, I mean, I would defer to the board's interest in this, but I would recommend using the board now to get information in front of them as a pre-education piece.
Yeah.
So as you're talking about, here are the results, talk more about the services, start talking about your analysis now.
I just wanted to throw this out, because you made me think of it, think you made me think of it too. One of the things that I would say too for non-affiliated is, and it's difficult because you don't want to say, but I think a lot of folks that I hear talking to are, to your point about the foundation, and we talk about other services that we pay for in the community, is it time to be rethinking, is the government, and we're getting strapped financially and we're looking, you're trying to find money just for our core services, are we really the answer, or do we need to start asking folks to help out in other ways, like foundations and nonprofits and raising money a different way? Because I feel like, I deal with this all the time, people look to us to pay for everything, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
The well is running dry, and we have to start reevaluating our core services, and I appreciate this conversation.
yeah. Well, and I think certainly another thing we can do is talk about the value that we are getting monetarily from the friends groups, the civic groups, the foundation,
Yeah.
and what that dollar amount is, because that is a really, that is not a dollar amount you see, right? Like it's a dollar amount that I sense all the time, because it's core to our existence, but it is not necessarily, so that there is a, you know, there is money that is supporting
I
what
think
this
that's
library
great to
system
get
does.
those numbers.
Yeah, so,
Excellent.
Thank you all.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.
You're gonna cut this one. Yep.
And you're gonna say, you're not going